Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone in Canada, to the rest of the world. Good morning, good evening. It's nighttime in Malaysia. I would firstly like to introduce myself. My name is Abdul Latif Ahmad, and I am the director of UKM Global, which is the International Relations Center of University Kebangsaan Malaysia, or the National University of Malaysia. Firstly, I would like to thank the Canadian Bureau for International Education for organizing this online symposium titled Reimagining Internationalization in a COVID-19 World. I believe that the topic is so appropriate to what's happening today. I believe that internationalization has been affected thoroughly with the global pandemic, and it would be a good experience for all of us to have a sharing session where we're able to listen to other people, to our counterparts and our partners in terms of how they deal with the situation. I would like to start today's presentation by sharing my screen here today. And okay, so let us start today. The title of my presentation for today is Strategies to Overcome Challenges in the International Relations Office. It is more of a UKM experience, and also it could be, I'm going to share some of the input that I received from our counterparts in Malaysia and also from other parts of the world. Yeah. So let's look at this. Firstly, I would have to do the obligatory task of actually sharing a bit of information from my university. The National University of Malaysia, or University Kebangsaan Malaysia, is 50 years old. We just celebrated our birthday just last month. And well, some people would call it 50 years young, but we're 50 years old. We are a research and comprehensive university. In that sense, we offer over 13 different faculties and also 12 different research centers. And that's being a research university in Malaysia, we're only 1 in 5. There's a strong focus on innovation, and also there's a strong focus on having more postgraduate students and emphasizing on research and innovation. We had just recently gone up, and now we're listed among the 150 top universities in the world under the QS World University Ranking. We've just reached number 141 in the recent data that was released. So we're looking forward to that. And this is our beautiful campus, University Kebangsaan Malaysia. And I hope that once the pandemic is over, we could still have our physical meetups. And I would definitely gradually, I would love to be honored to invite all of you to my university here. Yeah. Now, the objective of my presentation today is to understand the experience of Malaysian universities in facing the COVID-19 pandemic. In this case, it will be University Kebangsaan Malaysia. However, I would also share what are some of the similarities that we universities do and face during this global pandemic situation. Our second objective is to explore the strategies in facing with the new challenges faced by the International Relations Office. So we would like to share some of the things that we did and hope that all of you would gain some insights on how universities in Malaysia reacted and also came up with their planning and strategizing in dealing with this global pandemic. So basically, when we talk about internationalization and how it has affected different things, we're looking at how it has affected international student recruitment, for example, new students coming in, and also it affects our current international students, full-time students who's in the country, and how does this affect them? Do they need to go back? Do they need to stay in the country? We're also looking at research collaboration. There's a lot of cross-national research where international partner universities have relationship with UKM, and we've been doing a lot of activities together. And how does this got affected with the current global pandemic crisis? We're looking at staff and student mobility. We have some of our staff abroad and some of our students abroad as well, and we will look at how this affects them with the crisis that we faced. We're looking at how this has affected international visits, international conferences, and also visa processing for international students. So these are some of the issues or activities with regards to internationalization that takes place in Malaysia, for example, in UKM. And we would like to share how this were affected with the current global pandemic status. Yeah? Now, Well, what happened here? When the UKM experience with regards to COVID-19, when this thing happened, so all physical mobility programs are not allowed until 31st December 2020. So what we could see is that there were the ministry has actually issued a statement that there should not be any physical mobility programs until 31st December 2020. So what happens here is that there are currently students in Malaysia who's currently finishing up their semester, and there's a lot of Malaysian students who are also out of the country and also trying to deal with the whole global pandemic situation. Now, in Malaysia, we went through what is called a movement control order. In some places, an enhanced movement control order was introduced. Then it was followed by a conditional movement control order. And also currently, we're at a different stage where the economy is opening up and the countries are beginning to make slightly changes where they're allowing certain things to take place, and also certain part of the economy that's opening up is giving more access to people to lead a rather normal life under this current new normal situation. Now, what happens with the movement control order that was issued on March 18? What happened was that there was a lock in our borders. There was a control of inbound and outbound flow of local and international travelers. And this was not just happening in Malaysia. There were a lot of countries that secured their borders. They do not allow their local nationals to leave the country. They only accept their local nationals that's abroad to come home to their country. But it was also allowing international or foreigners from who stuck in their country to leave their country. But other than that, everything else is being controlled to a certain matter. So there was a lot of, it was very difficult to affect inflow and outflow of people in that matter. Yeah. Now, university is closed. So classes has been moved to a later date. In the case of UKM, it was a matter of 6 weeks where the university was closed and put to a halt. The staff was still working, but the classes were actually delayed to a certain time. Now, this allowed the academics more time to actually prepare content that could be used for their classes. Yeah? There was also a strict campus control. People coming in and coming out of the campus were controlled. This is to avoid the existence of a cluster or a university cluster that could affect the spread of COVID-19. So what happens here is that the control in the campus surroundings actually make international students who's in the campus unable to go out, and also people from the outside are not able to come in. However, it doesn't sound as scary as it is, but students were provided free meals throughout this time. Yeah, they were given breakfast, lunch, dinner, and they were also given, they were also allowed to actually request for certain things. For example, if they need to buy certain things, or they need to do some dealings with ministries or with embassies, they were allowed to go out of the country, out of the campus. I apologize on that. There were also free meals that were provided. So they were assured of given food. Accommodations were also discounted. So basically, the students who are in campus were taken care of in the sense that they were provided food and they were given discounts on accommodation throughout the movement control order period. Now, so for an international student, what does this mean? An international student would feel nervous. They would have many, many questions. There's a bit of an uncertainty, you know, do I get to go home? Do I get to see my family? Or am I stuck here forever? Is there any form of way for us to go out? What if we want important things? Now, they're also trying to deal with parents and families at home. So this is especially the international students. Their families are worried back home. Everyone was getting information on the COVID-19, and not many of them are pleasant stories. So what happens is that their parents might be contacting them and asking them to do things and asking them to go home. Well, some of them were not decided whether they wanted to go home or not. So those are some of the difficult situations that they were in as well. They were also dealing with universities. Yeah, their home universities back home may be requesting them or asking them questions whether they're okay. There's a lot of universities that recall their students as well, and that puts up a lot of challenges for the students. And the students need to be able to buy tickets to go home and all that. Now, in Malaysia, there was a policy that was made for international students to go home. they must get the approval from the embassy of their respective countries. And getting the approval and also a confirmed flight ticket would allow to take them from the university campus to the airport. This was to ensure that the students are protected from the global pandemic. Yeah. So students were also worried about classes and also research. So they had many questions to ask in terms of what are the right things to do, what are the possible things that they could actually do, and how are the classes being operated, and will there be any physical meetings and all that. So that could be a challenge as well. Yeah. Now, for international office, what are some of the issues that the international office face? You know what? It's not much different from what the university students are facing. We were nervous as well. We had many, many questions as well. And there were certain things that were quite uncertain. We were also dealing with parents and family at home. For example, not just our personal families, but a lot of our students' family tend to call the international office asking how their family members are. And it's our responsibility to actually ensure that they are maintaining communication and they are getting to contact their respective family members. We're also worried about classes and research. But at the same time, we were also dealing with the top management in University Kebangsaan Malaysia, and we were given instructions on where the university is heading, on what are the requirements that the university needs to do, and what are the basic steps and procedures that we had to educate and disseminate to all our international students. There was also a need to ensure that there was a proper communication flow. So we had an assigned website specifically for international students. So the international office's task was actually to share this information to the international student so that they are able to get information and they're able to get a form of communication from the university. So they can always go to the website to get latest posters, latest updates, and information with regards to COVID-19 and the university. Now, these are some examples of the posters that they have here. For example, the posters are written in English. For example, where students are being placed. This is an example of the information of what they have to go through. Now, I know this is in Malay. I couldn't find the English one at the moment. Oh, sorry, there are. So there's English and Malay, sorry. So the Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia actually had a 24-hour hotline. Now, this 24-hour hotline is not only assisting us, the international office, but also students, parents, family members can call this line to ask about procedures, about the process that they have, if they want to have their family members back, if they want to know, if they're Malaysians and they want to know whether their children is okay abroad and how do they come back, they can also call this line. So we've gotten the support of the Ministry of Higher Education in ensuring us and ensuring consistency and standardization of answers to the general public. So having these guidelines, this telecom, this hotline as well, actually ensure that we were sharing the same messages. So even if the international office is not clear about the messages that need to be sent, we always contact and get the support from the Ministry of Higher Education. And I felt that was so organized and that assisted us really, really well. Yeah. So this is an example of one poster that was written in the Malay language, and this is one poster that was written in English. So we must ensure that whatever communication messages that we had, it was both in the Malay and also the English language, all right? So now, what happens is that we have inbound and outbound mobility students, and students were called back by their home country, and our students were abroad, and did we need to recall them back? So it's a lot of challenges and a lot of processes that we go through, and we really hope that we needed proper SOP, standard operating procedure. We wanted to ensure that our students are protected and the international students were protected as well. We felt that it was a responsibility for the international office to ensure that they are all taken care of. Now, let me share you some visuals. This is an exciting visual, and I call this visual very, very iconic. Now, this is our Malaysian students who were in Indonesia, Universitas Indonesia, and they wanted to come back home because their courses could be conducted online and the examinations were also online. So we had to have them, so we said, okay, you guys can come back. And they came back very, very early. But if you could see, I'm not sure if you could see this very, very clearly. So this was how the electronic board in the airport looks like at this period of time. So all flights were basically canceled, except for one flight to Kuala Lumpur from Jakarta And this was the flight that they were on. So this is all of them showing their Malaysian passport, ensuring that they were coming home. And for information, just prior to that, they were trying to get home maybe 2 to 3 times, but flights were cancelled. Airlines were suspending services throughout for the whole entire month, for example. So that really, the current logistics, the current situation. So what we did was we contacted Education Malaysia in Jakarta, and they assisted us as well, ensuring that our students also got accommodation. And we just wanted to make sure that our students were not sleeping in the airport 5 days or 10 days trying to get airline tickets to come home. So that was all support, the support that we got. And Universitas Indonesia really assisted us as well. So we also had some of the international students from our country who was going abroad. And that was also quite exciting. Now, that was quite exciting in the sense that it challenged us to communicate with our partner universities and ensuring that they arrived there safely as well. So what you see here now, this is the procedure. Now, what's quite exciting is that from the previous picture, you saw a lot of passport. Now, not all of the students who came back were just UKM students, not just our students. There were a lot of students from, other universities as well in Malaysia. So what we did as the National University of Malaysia was that our university was quite close to the airport. We were just about 30 to 40 minutes away in the airport. And what we did was we assisted them because they find it very difficult to travel back. So their universities were 3 to 4 hours away. So what the university did was, our deputy vice chancellor contacted one another, and they actually discussed, and University Kebangsaan Malaysia actually offered shelter, food, and accommodation to the students coming from other universities as well. So we felt it was a social responsible task for us to be doing. If you could see here, if you could see the person here, this would be me, and we were all in our protective, personal protective equipment suit, our PPE suit, and we were taking full procedure to ensure, and I wanted to see that the students come back safely, and took the responsibility of actually going there and taking them as well with our medical team, just to ensure that all basic protocols were taken care of, and that they would safely arrive in Malaysia as well. So that was an interesting experience. And Alhamdulillah, the students all arrived safely, and they were all negative when they were tested. So we quarantined them in a university accommodation for 14 days. This is some of our international students who also got free food. There were a lot of sponsorships. People came in and gave them food. Yeah, these are our students from Korea and from Indonesia who also received some of the food. Now, this is something, it sort of like brings tears to my eyes when I see this. Now, if you could see what the students are doing here, they actually volunteered, yeah, with the local students. So the international students volunteered with the local students to actually make the PPE. PPE is the protective gear, the personal protective equipment, the whole attire that they wear, the frontliners had to wear to protect themselves from getting infected with COVID-19. So what's interesting about Malaysia as well is that the whole fashion industry, and we're talking about top designer labels in Malaysia, actually working together to, where they decided to say, hey, we've got these skills, why not we actually come up and help to make this, because there was a bit of a shortage at a period of time. So why not they come up and design and also make these PPEs. So our local students and international students also got into the spirit of this, and they've actually found that their contribution is just amazing, and we could not be even more proud of them for doing all this. Yeah. And this was a volunteer work that they had some time, and they decided to assist our frontliners in Malaysia as well. This was sort of like a campaign that we did. We're just trying to say to the message out there, we're okay, we're in campus, we're quite protected, we've got free food, we've got accommodation. So, stay calm, I'm fine in UKM, so don't worry, it's like I'm staying at home, kami okay, we are okay, I think there were some that I was saying, don't worry mom, we're fine. It's just to show to and it's written in various languages as well, just to tell people out there that you're doing great, you're doing okay, and they're being taken care of in the university. So how has all this actually affected the university? So how has this affected? So what happens that we've gone wild over webinars? I noticed that since the whole COVID-19 came in and everything was online. So I think I've gone through so many webinars. I can't remember how many webinars that I've attended, but we've done this as well. We organized one, UKM organized one on entering the new realm of international higher education, specifically talking about the whole COVID situation and how universities across the world participated is affected by the whole situation. We had our reps from Toyo University, from Technological de Monterrey, from UKM, and also from the Commission of Higher Education Philippines, who all came in and also gave their input to the whole talks. Yeah, so this was interesting. I was also a panel for a share event, and this was also a very successful thing. So we went crazy with webinars. We became participants, we became commentators, we became panelists. We also participated in so many things. And we were thinking, like, how come we never did this before? You know, I mean, Zoom was there, Microsoft Teams was there, but we've never actually explored it. So suddenly we discovered we've got all this new knowledge just by participating in all these events. And that's always exciting. We had a lot of online meetings, as you can see, and we find that this is definitely a new strategic way of doing things, of incorporating things, and adapting to the whole situation. Now, these are some of the things to consider. How does this affect you? How has this affected internationalization? So this was when we pause and say, so what's next? I mean, internationalization is affected. But does it mean we succumb to it? Or does it mean we come up with a new plan? Or does it mean that we have to look at things in a very different way? So the things to consider is, how does this affect our KPI? I mean, that's not the first one. It's just been rearranged that way. But KPIs need to be reviewed. Our key performance indicators were affected. We had some targets for international students to come in and to send abroad as well. This was also a good year for our university, because we've actually decided to boost up our mobility funds to have more students getting the whole cross-cultural experience. But these are things that we look at. So are we going to review it, or there's another way of doing things? For example, are we going into virtual mobility? And is that a feasible thing? And would it create the same level of excitement? What does our partners expect from us now? So where do we hold ourselves in this whole situation? And how does partners look at it? And what sort of relationship are we establishing? Are faculties ready for online classes? These are things that we needed to know. We've been saying everything's got to be online, but is the faculty ready for an online class? That's something for us to consider as well. Are our staff, the international relations office, ready with the new mode as well? We are always assuming that everyone can just go onto the online platform. Some people still need assistance, and some people still need help, and they're very familiar with how things are. But so this is something exciting for us to look at. What about ministry and national policies? Now, there's a lot of things that happens in our country or in our university is actually determined by ministry and national policies. So basically, those things has such an effect on us. For example, if there's no physical mobility up to the end of the year, so there isn't going to be one because it's a directive issued by the ministry. So we must come up with other ideas to support that and to be able to ensure that our students still get the benefits of internationalization. Now, so I would like to share a bit of virtual mobility. So virtual mobility is an interesting thing that we have to look at. And, it's about using communication and technology, in terms of hoping for the same purposes with physical mobility, but without the necessary for travel. So we're looking at it as an option. And we're also looking at other possibilities for example, an online project between universities, or an online or a COIL program, collaborative learning among international learners. And that would be exciting as well to see if they are able to materialize the form of virtual mobility that exists. I was talking, I was invited for a panelist, and we were talking about whether virtual mobility would be a success. And I was saying, hey, you know what? We're talking about the Gen Z, the young ones now, those people who actually are digital natives. Whenever we talk, will virtual mobility work? We're always looking at it in terms of our generation. For us, everything going on mobile is something where we had to pause and think, because we are more of the digital migrant generation. But them, they were born with technology. So for them, virtual mobility, if they could be involved in esports, for example, they could play a game, get all excited, with their friends on the virtual realm. They're connected by just a microphone, joystick, and also a headgear. It shows that, hey, maybe virtual mobility could create the same level of excitement. So this generation is also very IT friendly, very open to new ideas. To them, tradition is not exciting. They're a fast learner. They're not earning as much income to just travel just yet. They're social media enthusiasts, and they're living the virtual life. So you know what? Maybe they're ahead of us when it comes to virtual mobility. I know we're planning ahead, we're still thinking, but you know what? The students are far more adaptive than we give them credit for. So try being in their shoes and see that this might not be such complex, or this might not be such a complex concept for them. All right. In the university now, so all these are buzzwords in the university. There's Zoom, there's Microsoft Teams, there's Google Meet, and there's also WebEx. And people are teaching using synchronous and asynchronous method. There's also the WhatsApp, Line, Facebook. We've got this technology called UKM Folio, which is a internal built learning management system. And that's also a plus point. And students are getting a lot of access to that for their online classes. Now, these are some of the way for planning for virtual mobility. I believe the international office needs to take on responsibility to initiate virtual mobility, and that's one way of looking at it. Now, I'm not saying that virtual mobility is going to replace traditional mobility, however, traditional physical mobility. However, we may have to consider it, maybe a hybrid concept, for example, something that could be used by both parties in terms of trying to come up with, how can we deal with this new situation? Now, some of the key strategies. And the first thing I thought was a key strategy is that the university works as a team. So we at International Relations Office needs to work with the corporate communication, student affairs, faculties, residential colleges, health centers, security. We need to work as a team. Whatever we say, we're the whole university. So we get our messages from the corporate communication department. We need to communicate with student affairs so that we're giving the same messages to our students. Faculties need to know what are their roles in this situation. We need to know how online teaching is taking place. We need to know how lecturers are conducting their classes. We need to know whether colleges are giving them the services that they require, and we need to know health center needs to be giving the same messages, and we need to be sharing with students. So I feel that it's so important for us to work as a team. We should not be sending cluttered messages. Everyone wants to send a message. We should be working as a team. So it's always good to have a crisis communication team in there. So some of the strategies that we've looked for is the ministry-university relationship. The Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia has been far, far more supportive than we could have ever asked for, with the hotline that they've had. Everything was answered. They were having a 24-hour hotline, and everything was answered by them. We requested for information. They were able to supply information. They were giving us directives, clear direction on what we need to know, students. Everything was written to us. Things were highlighted clearly. Messages were sent. So the universities were able to operate in terms of what they want to do and actions that they need to take place. There was also a strong communication flow. For example, the corporate communication office actually shared the messages clearly to all of us. So this was applied to all the universities in Malaysia as well, where there must be a clear-cut communication. So everything was listed. Posters were given so that students would understand. The messages were being shared at one point as well. We have a student support system. Our buddies were also giving online support to the students. Aside from that, we also have tele-counseling services. Now, these tele-counseling services are not just for international students or local students, but you're also given to academic and also administrative staff of the university. We felt that there's a need for the people to know what's going on. We cannot just assume that they just understand what needs to be done. But they need all the support that to be given to them as well. Training of academics, there were a lot of programs, webinars, teaching on how to use the online learning system. And we were also liaising with embassies and partners. So embassies and partners were, we had to contact them, getting their approval for students to leave, ensuring, once the students arrive safely, we contacted whether they have arrived. So it needed to be done in a more structured manner. And we've alhamdulillah, we've been able to do that. So these are some of the findings from our partner universities, from Malaysian universities, and also some of our partners in Japan, ASEAN countries as well. So the strategies that they did was to establish a task force. An IR office may be a member, the IR office may be a member of this task force. FAQs and constant reminders, wash hands, social distancing, the message needs to be given across. And Malaysia is a very collectivistic country, so messages are very clear, and this comes from the national level, university level, people with social distancing, people with, wearing masks, and, reacting is how they were doing. Masks was also provided to all the international students on a daily basis, although it is very difficult because there were times when there was a shortage of this as well. There was a control of the campus. There was also online delivery of classes. Majority has no physical classes. Most countries does not. There was also online meetings and webinars. There was issues with network and infrastructure capabilities. So as we go online, we need to review. So this is some of what our partner universities were saying, that some of their universities or some of their students, or because of digital divide, for example, it's very difficult for students to get access to the internet, for example. So readiness of academics to embrace the new normal. So this is something very, very important, and also students' response and reaction to the whole situation. So these are some of the interesting things that they had to do in terms of some of the issues that our partners face. Yeah. So this is some of our future plans. So we're really looking at doing COIL. We're looking at thinking about our cross-cultural competency through through the virtual form of internationalization. We're looking at training, further training, and we hope to get feedback from our students to know how we are dealing in times of crisis as well. We're thinking of developing summer programs, and also we also need to review our KPIs so that we are being very realistic with what's happening in the country as well. So incorporation of a hybrid virtual and physical mobility for the future. So these are some of the things that we're looking at as well. I'm just sharing to you. So what we have here, this was the virtual mobility farewell that we had for our students last year. It was a Christmas celebration. We said goodbye to all our students. And then we had, this is the virtual mobility farewell. And our students from America was here. I'm just so sad and so grateful to see they're up, because this is all in different time zones, from Indonesia, from Brunei, for example, and also from the US, all came in for a mobility farewell. So that's some interesting things. I think I've exceeded by a few minutes. I hope that I didn't speak too fast. That's my email address. You guys can contact me if you have any questions. I also have to say thank you to my team, to Hafiz, Haikal, Rosnani, Dr. Tanot, and all the team members who actually assisted me in sharing inputs and contacting our partners to get information to share with all of you today. So I hope you guys have an excellent symposium, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.